Can somebody admit everybody? For some reason, I can't do that.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. As you're joining, will you please introduce yourself in the chat, your name, pronouns, and organization? So once again, I am very excited to be here with you this morning. Welcome. As you're joining, please introduce yourself in the chat with your name, pronouns, and organization. And while folks are doing that, I will introduce myself. My name is Peg Kinsel, and I am the Policy Director at SPAN Parent Advocacy Network. We are an organization in New Jersey that have been on the road for 35 years. We have been committed to lifting a lot of issues around because our vision is that all families will have the resources and support they need to ensure their children become fully participating and contributing members of our community in science. With our mission to empower and support families and inform and involve the professionals that are interested in a healthy development and education of children and youth, and a foremost commitment to children and families with the greatest need, paid family leave has been a priority for many years for us. Hearing a little bit.
Say what I did, you know, I got it.
So if folks could mute their phones or their Zooms. Appreciate that. Today's the 6th convening of the New Jersey Paid Leave Outreach Collaborative, and today's topic is paid leave and caregiving for loved ones. We'll be hearing from lots of amazing guest speakers and advocates and caregivers, and we hope that we will be hearing from some of you as well and your stories of caregiving or care receiving. We're doing this meeting in a Zoom format so that we can hear from you. But until that moment, we please ask that you are muted and switch to a speaker view. Today, we have support from Yarrow, who you may recognize from leading our previous collaborative convenings, and Natasha. Together, they are helping run the logistics of the meeting today and also sharing really important information in the chat as well. Today, we will have a short presentation from the Department of Labor and have a panel with some great guests. Then we will do a breakout groups where everyone will have the chance to join the conversation. And we are recording the meeting. We will be sending the recording along with the links and information and follow-up email to everyone who's registered. So appreciate the introductions in the chat. We want to launch a quick poll to see what perspectives we have represented here today. I hope you can see the questions. Please check one option that best describes your fit or is the best fit for you today being here. While you are answering, I want to invite Natasha to join us to give you some background on the New Jersey Paid Leave Outreach Collaborative. Hi, Natasha.
Thanks, Peg. I appreciate that introduction. Just to give you guys, if y'all haven't met me before, my name is Natasha Mogay. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a paid leave organizer with New Jersey Citizen Action, and I work closely with Yarrow on the New Jersey Paid Outreach Collaborative. So the collaborative was launched just over a year ago, and it's focused on the implementation and education of our paid leave programs and laws. And we also, we primarily work to increase workers and employers' awareness and understanding of paid leave so that all workers can access paid time off when they need it the most. So New Jersey is just one of a handful of states with both paid family leave programs and paid sick days or earned sick days laws. But there are still many workers and employers who are unaware or confused about what paid family leave and paid sick days are. So as the collaborative tries to tackle this by bringing together a wide range of organizations, such as those who are here today, we're really interested in increasing awareness, understanding, and usage of paid leave. And we're really, really excited to share our new logo and website with you, which I will share with you now. We've been working on it for the past month, and we just recently launched it. So I'll drop the link for this in the chat, but so this is a website where you could find everything about what the collaborative is. You could press on this link over here and it'll take you to a Google form to join the collaborative. You could also find more information on our work group. You press on the work group, it'll tell you more about our 5 work groups and when the monthly work group meetings are. And the easiest way to find all of the upcoming events is to go to the event page. And when you go on the event page, as you could see, there's, the links on the calendar for all of our upcoming meetings, including our steering committees meetings, which are on every second Thursday, our monthly work group meetings, which are every third Thursday, and our quarterly convenings, which is the first Wednesday of every third month. And just for an example, we have our if you want to register for our caregiver work group, which is on the 15th, which is next Thursday, you can just go on the calendar, go over this image over here, press on it, and you can just press on this link to the tab to register. And once you're registered for the event, it'll send it to your email, and you could, join the event from there. Yeah, I just wanted to give you a view of how the website can help you figure out where you could fit into the effort. And as I wrap up, I just wanted to make sure to recruit you all to join the collaborative and our efforts. And we'll also remind you at the end of this meeting how to do that. And I will make sure to drop the link to the website in the chat. But back to you, Peg. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. So please, yes, visit the link to sign up for the collaborative officially. It's important work and we need everybody to be a part of it. Okay, so let's see what our poll results look like. We have close to 50% are human resources or employers. We have 19% advocate organizer representation, 8% from government agency, 2% from the caregiver focus, 8% on policy, and 9% social worker, community health worker. And I think that will take care of that. So that's interesting. And we're real excited to have HR and employer folks with us, and very excited as we talk more with advocates and caregivers about the importance of joining the collaborative and being a part of it. I think we're gonna take one more poll because we want to kind of get a sense of how many people have been using paid family leave for caregiving, or haven't used it and weren't aware. So we're going to launch another poll. And in this poll, it's multiple choice. So you can answer as many times, as many answers that apply to you. The poll launched. Don't see the poll.
It's there. I think other people can see it, Peg.
Okay, great. That's all I want to make sure. So as you're working on the poll, I want to take a minute to kind of ground us in some of the background or of caregiving, as our topic is for today's convening. Almost everyone at some point in their life will need to take time away from paid work to care for a family member, whether it's a few days, a week, months. This caregiving time period spans from childbirth through the end of life. It could include a need for the care of a newborn, or a chronically ill child or spouse, or end of life care for a parent or other caregiving needs. We find multiple ways that paid family leave can be used, and that's why this is so critically important to make sure that folks are aware. As I told you before, SPAN began working with this coalition to enact the original paid family leave back in 2007. So we've been working for a long time. And we have been on that long journey with the coalition as it stands now, as well as in the beginning. With our focus on children and families with the greatest need, including those with disability and special health care needs, we're well aware of how important this was to those families, and being able to have the opportunity to be the caregiver that your family needs is one of the most crucial decisions you can make, and some of what we're trying to alleviate that pressure around. I also want to mention, on a personal note, I had experience that solidified the importance of paid family leave to me. My godson was only 18 when he was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. His mom worked in a cafeteria and his dad worked in a factory. And they, like a lot of us, a lot of families, work paycheck to paycheck. Neither had any access to paid leave. They had to make the soul-crushing decision about whether they remained working and took care of their family and kept a roof over their head and fed the rest of their family, or that they spend these most precious moments with their son. Not to mention all the expenses they had from treatment, travel back and forth, hospitalizations, and everything that goes with it. Less than a year later, their son was on hospice. And although we all chipped in, family, friends, shared in staying and spending time with Eric so he wasn't alone. No mother should have to make the decision of working or spending the last precious moments with her son. We lost him at 19, and that is one of the reasons paid family leave for caregivers is so very important. I don't want any parent faced with that decision ever again. So thank you for indulging my story, but I think a lot of us are here not only because of organizational focuses and priorities, but also personal situations or families of friends that have had to make those soul crushing kind of decisions. So thank you again. As our population in the United States ages, more workers will face dilemmas trying to provide care for their family members. We have what we call the sandwich generation, or we worked for under the lemon squeeze kind of connotation about caregiving on both ends of the spectrum, and multiple families that are caring for young children and also aged or ill parents. In the United States, 53 million adults are providing unpaid care for another adult. And among those caregivers, nearly a quarter are caring for more than one person. More than 1 in 6 US workers are caregivers at home. 28% of those caregivers report their employers are unaware of their caregiving status. When workers can't take the time they need to care for a family member, we know it can impact physical, mental, and emotional health and contribute to elevated financial stress. We know that in New Jersey, the demand on workers to care for loved ones is there. And what's surprising is that as of 2020, only 25% of New Jersey family leave insurance claims were filed for caregiving. That's part of why we're all here today together, and so that we can raise the awareness about New Jersey's paid leave benefits for caregiving. While the birth of a child or the bonding piece is so critically important to families, we want families to be aware of this option of paid family leave for caregiving for a loved one. So let's take a look at our second poll results. All right, so 81%, I knew you could use paid family leave for caring for a loved one. 10% did not know that. 21% has used paid family leave to care for a loved one. And I needed to take leave to care for a loved one, but did not, and that's at 6%. So what we're going to do now is, and thanks for participating, it makes it so much easier when everyone's engaged, and we appreciate that. We want to look at a short yet really moving video from the ARC of New Jersey about caregiving for a disabled loved one. Yarrow, can you start the video?
Tell people back home what's your name.
Mike?
Most of us need time off from our job at some point, whether it's to take care of ourselves or a family member. And you know, we often think about taking time off to care for a new baby, for example, but paid leave is needed for much more than that in almost. Michael is my big brother. We're really close. He's always been the best brother to me from the beginning. My brother has intellectual disability. As a young adult, Michael was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He struggled, but still graduated from high school, class of 1987.
Thanksgiving 2017, everything changed very suddenly. Michael and my mother came to visit us, and it became clear immediately after they got here that my brother was in crisis. And I knew that really I was the only one who was going to be able to help him. I felt like I was pulled in every direction. and I didn't know how I was going to get through it. Sometimes I cared for Michael in my home, which was really hard. Other times when he wasn't at my home, I worried day and night, couldn't sleep, because he was really stuck in an inadequate living situation. I felt like I didn't know how I was going to manage the next day. My new job became sibling caregiver. I worked around the clock to find and secure appropriate disability services and supports for Michael. As a sibling, I still have to make sure that he's safe, that he is properly cared for, and that he is doing well. And that never ends. Right now, we have the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, a federal law which gives eligible workers up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. But it doesn't include siblings, and most families can't afford to take that time without pay. That's why it's so important that we fight for paid leave that lets siblings take the time they need for their families too and still make a living. We need paid leave, and we need to make sure that it covers caring for a sibling, because there are a lot of families out there that are like mine.
I can play a little bit. I feel good.
thearc.org/joinourfight.
Well, that was a powerful video. As you can see, paid leave is critically important for situations such as caring for someone who is often able to care for themselves despite their disability, but you never know when a situation arises that necessitates taking some of time off to assist in improving their care and well-being. I would like to now introduce Rebecca Glenn from the New Jersey Department of Labor to provide us with a short training on paid family leave for caregiving so that we can better understand how the program works and can be accessed to take time to care for loved ones. We'll have about 5 minutes afterwards for a Q&A, so please put your questions in the chat and we will get to all those that we can. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Peg. I'm really excited to be here with you today. Paid leave is also a passion of mine for all the reasons we've learned and all the reasons I'm sure you're aware of. So I'm excited that we get to talk about about New Jersey's paid family and medical leave program. We're really lucky that we have one in the state because we're one of the only advanced economies that doesn't have a national paid leave program. So I'm going to share my slides. One second. Okay. Can you see the
Rebecca, can you just move your mic a little bit away from your mouth?
Yep. Sorry about that. Is that better now?
I think so.
Oh no. Okay. So let me know as I go if it needs more adjusting. Okay. So I'll mention that I'm the average program coordinator for the New Jersey Department of Labor. My job is to help teach people about paid family and medical leave. I also have 2 family leave insurance experts here with me today, Arnell White and Marianne Keene, who are going to help me answer the questions that I don't know the answers to. So yes, please.
Yeah, Rebecca, is there a way that you can just not use the headset, or do you have to?
I do have to. Hold on one second. What's the challenge there? It's too loud?
It's loud and muffly kind of at the same time.
Okay.
I think the volume might be helping to muffle it. So if you can turn the volume down a little bit, might be helpful.
Is it better now?
Yes.
1,000 times.
Great to hear. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so Like I said, I have Arnell and Marianne here with me today that will help answer your questions. Hopefully they won't have headset issues. And okay, let's get started. So this is just a legal disclaimer to say that the official source of information on these programs is the New Jersey Register and Administrative Code, but we do our best to keep these slides as accurate and helpful as possible. So we have New Jersey Paid Family and Medical Leave here, and it is made up of 2 cash benefit programs in the state. First, New Jersey Temporary Disability Insurance. This is the program you would use if you needed to care for yourself for your own physical or mental health issue that prevents you from working. We also have New Jersey Family Leave Insurance, and this is highlighted in blue because this is what you would use if you were caregiving. And then we also have state and federal job protection laws, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but just know that the Department of Labor, the New Jersey Department of Labor, administers TDI and FLI, and then there's, in addition, job protection laws that you might have access to as well. So, as I said, family leave insurance is the program you would use if you were caring for a loved one. You can access family leave insurance if you can't work because you are caring for a loved one with a physical or mental health condition. You can also use family leave insurance for coping with domestic or sexual violence, or if you're caring for a loved one who is a survivor of domestic or sexual violence. And just an aside, this is the same program you would use if you were bonding with a new child, whether it be a newborn, adoptive child, or foster child. You could receive up to 12 weeks of family leave insurance benefits if you take them consecutively, all at once in a row. If you're going to return to work in between, take a few days here, a few weeks there, that would be considered an intermittent claim, and you would have access to up to 56 days. The benefits you could receive under family leave insurance is 85% of your average weekly wage, up to a yearly maximum. In 2022, the maximum you could receive per week is $993. I think a really important part of this law is who's considered family. So we saw in the video that under the federal FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, a sibling is not considered a family member. Well, in New Jersey, a family member is considered anyone who you consider to be family, whether it be your child, a spouse, your in-laws, chosen family, anyone who you consider to be family, and the medical provider will indicate that you're the one responsible for care, you could receive cash benefits for caring for them. So now I'll go a bit into eligibility, and this can be a little complicated. I'm going to go through it quickly, but I'm happy to go answer more questions at the end. So your employer has to be covered under the law. So for family leave insurance specifically, most employers are covered. They have to participate in family leave insurance or provide employees coverage through a private insurance plan. The federal government is exempt, and generally employees who work mostly outside of New Jersey, so say you live in New Jersey, but like you work in New York, you would not necessarily be covered under these programs. If your employer is covered, they're required to set up payroll contributions for you. That's how the program is funded, through payroll contributions. They're also required to create some awareness for you. So employers must display family leave insurance posters. There's an official poster we have in a workplace, in a place that's very clearly visible to employees. They also have to provide written notice of family leave insurance when you're hired, and also if you indicate to your employer that you need time off to care for a loved one, they then also would have to notify you of family leave insurance then. You yourself also have to meet some eligibility requirements. So the first one is to apply right now, you need a valid Social Security number. That's one of the requirements to apply. You also have to work for a covered employer, which I just talked about. And if you're not currently working, you could be eligible for a program called Family Leave During Unemployment. I won't go into that now, but the website, the link to that site is on the slide, which we'll share out after. You also have to meet earnings requirements. In 2022, that is 20 weeks earning at least $240 weekly, or you have earned a combined total of $12,000 in the base year. Base year is a fancy way of saying 4 of the last 5 quarters you've worked before filing for leave. You also have to be considered an employee. So if you are properly classified as an independent contractor, sometimes it's called a 1099 employee, you would not be eligible. I'll quickly go over some tips on applying now. We do recommend that you apply online through our web application. You could also, though, print a paper version of our application and mail or fax it into us. The paper version is called, the form is called an FL1. It can take 2 to 6 weeks for us to approve a claim and pay benefits. So keep that in mind. And that's once we have all the information we need, once we have a completed application. An important component of applying is the medical providers portion. They have to certify your loved one's need for care, right? So it's important you follow up with them and make sure they're completing their part. And it's also important to make sure you're on the same page with them, because you need to make sure that the medical portion reflects the amount of leave you're requesting. What I mean by that is if you want to care for your loved one 3 times a week, say that's what your need for caregiving is, the medical provider has to indicate that care is needed 3 times per week. If they say only 2 times per week, we're not going to be able to approve caregiving for 3 days a week. These are just some additional websites that you can go to for some more information about applying and getting paid. I'm also going to cover intermittent leave, what it means to take leave, a week at a time or a day at a time, because I think that's the reality of caregiving is you might not need it all at once. So you can take intermittent leave when you apply, or when you return to work and you still have some of that 12 weeks or 56 days left, it becomes an intermittent claim. Okay. To file for additional dates, so say you return to work and then you need more time off to care, you would fill out what's called an FL3 form. This form is automatically generated when you return to work and with those 56 days left. Or you could also print out the paper application and fill out the intermittent leave section. It's called Part D, and mail and fax that into us. That's another option. If the prognosis has changed and that's why you need more care, need to provide additional care for your loved one, the medical provider might need to provide updated forms to us as well to indicate that the prognosis has changed from what's on record. And just to note that if you need to provide care after 1 year from the start of your caregiving claim, then it becomes a new claim and you'd have to apply with us again. Need to apply with us again. Please note that for a claim to be considered continuous and to get that full 12 weeks, the medical provider upfront has to indicate that the care for that loved one is needed on a continuous basis on their portion of the application. And this is a piece of it's called the FL1, the paper application. And I'm just pulling it up because Part D, this is the partial leave schedule that you could print where you would indicate leave is intermittent, or you could print out and mail again if you need to file for additional dates. And we know this process is clunky, but please make sure you can print this out and fill this out. And we think that's a pretty fast way. As I mentioned before, job protection is not baked into family leave insurance, but your job could be protected under some state and federal laws. I listed them here. The eligibility for them is different, so you might qualify for cash benefits and not job protection, and vice versa. You can take either. You don't need to be taking both, but obviously they work the best when you can take them together. So I can answer more questions about this, but we do have a website that links you to the relevant resources. These are not enforced by the New Jersey Department of Labor, but we do have some links to the relevant agencies. However, family leave insurance does have anti-retaliation language in it, and if you take leave, if your employer retaliates against you for taking or seeking to take leave, you have the right to take private legal action. I know I'm over time. The last nugget I'll say is that in New Jersey, we have this great work right called earned sick leave, where almost all employers have to allow employees to accrue 1 hour of earned sick leave for every 30 hours worked. So up to a maximum of 40 hours of sick leave. And this is like a normal sick day that is paid in your paycheck. And this really expands access to sick time in New Jersey. And you could use this sick time under the law. You could use it to care for a loved one as well. This is some information on if you need help with an individual claim, but I hope we have a few minutes for Marianne, Arnell, and myself to answer some questions about the program more broadly. Yes, so I can take some questions if you guys want to put it in the chat. Apologies for the muffledness I'm seeing, and I will make sure to send out the PowerPoint for you guys as well at the end. So any questions about the program?
Rebecca, do you see this question in the chat asking about taking 6 weeks initially, that should you wait until the 6 weeks are over to submit the claim? Because of course on the form it says the dates are later than the signature date, and it could be considered ineligible. So can you just clarify that process?
Yeah, so my understanding is that you have to apply after you take your leave. Arnell or Marianne, do you have anything?
So if it's 6 weeks continuous, we just ask that you sign it after the actual first date of leave. So let's say if you're starting today, September 7th, and you're taking a continuous 6 weeks, we would like to see you sign it on today, actual day 9/7 or later. It doesn't have to be after the whole 6 weeks.
Great. And this next question related to intermittent leave is just asking, how often are you paid for intermittent leave?
Marianne, do you have a sense of that?
So are you asking the payment? Because we pay bi-weekly. Is that
what I was asking? Is,
yes, Dawn, if you want to clarify, go ahead.
Do you have to accumulate like
we can't hear you, Dawn, actually.
I'm sorry. Do you have to accumulate a full week of intermittent leave before you put in for payment? Like, is it paid on a weekly? Like, you know, you're not going to get a day's pay. You're going to have to wait until you accumulate. Is it a full week to be paid?
So we pay bi-weekly. So if you, let's say in the span of that bi-week pay, you had applied for a day, you would get paid for a day in that bi-weekly cycle.
Oh, okay. And is there just one number for the state of New Jersey? Because I deal with so many employees that can never get through.
Yes, there's only one customer service phone number.
Customers for temporary disability and family leave insurance.
Right.
There's multiple customer service numbers for different programs. And yes, we definitely acknowledge that there are a lot of people calling in, and it can be challenging to get through.
Yeah,
we
most
apologize.
people just give up because of it.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's something
definitely a
that-
challenge we're working on.
Is okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Apologies for
And
that.
we have a couple more questions, but we're going to have to cut this short because we are running behind. But the next question is this: how does it work if somebody just needs to take off time for an appointment and not necessarily the full day?
Okay, so we only pay for full days. So if you're using PTO for 3 hours or whatever the amount is, you will not be paid for that day. You actually have to take the full day.
And then when an employer is going to, this question is related to paid parental leave, Norma, but I'm going to just say in terms of paid family leave, if an employer is offering 100%, how does that coordinate with state paid benefits?
So employers, I think it depends on like what the employer program is. If the employee is receiving benefits through the employer's private insurance plan, that's how you would receive benefits. Employers have the option to, we call it like making the employee whole. So we only pay 85% of benefits, but if the employer wants to pay the additional 15%, they can do that. And there's like a portion of the form on the application where you would indicate that that's happening. But that wouldn't affect like the benefits you get from the state. Does that answer your question, Norma?
Let's assume so, Rebecca. And I want to just remark that when everyone gets the slides and the presentation, you can absolutely respond with any questions and we'll forward them on should we need. To Deborah's point, there may be situations where you might want to just access your earned sick leave where it's going to pay just smaller increments. The employer pays you, of course, directly and not through the state. If you're applying through the state, that's the full day. And the last question is if you started out using full-time leave when the situation, I'm sorry, when you started using full-time leave when the situation changed and you only were needed on an intermittent basis, how much time did you get? Did you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I think Arnell
So-
can explain this. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, my mic was muted. I just want to make sure I have an understanding of the question. Is the question if you initially started, I guess, taking it on a continuous basis, and then I guess you switched to taking it intermittently? Is that what the question is saying?
Can you see the chat?
Yes, that's the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it depends on how many days you take continuously. So if you take anything over 56 days and then you want to start intermittent, your claim will max out at 56 days. So for instance, if you only took maybe 2 weeks of continuous leave and then you then decided to take it on an intermittent basis, your claim will max out at 56 days, 8 weeks.
Okay, we really do have to move on. I apologize. Please email and reach out with any other questions and we will connect us to the Department of Labor.
Thanks, Yara. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Rebecca, and your team there. Really important information for everyone to have. And we will share how you can continue to be a part of the efforts to increase understanding of paid leave and be sharing opportunities to participate in training and other activities coming up. So back to that collaborative page. So thank you again, Rebecca. I'd like to introduce a colleague, Lauren Agaratis, who is a longtime advocate and champion of paid family leave. She is the state coordinator of New Jersey Family Voices, which is housed at SPAN. But most importantly, she's the mom of Stephanie. So welcome, Lauren. And can you tell us a little bit about your story and what paid leave means to you and your family?
Sure, Peg. I was going to do that same exact intro with my professional background, AKA Stephanie's mom. So yes, since this is about caregiving, so many people don't identify the fact that they have an extra role, that they're a caregiver. My tagline is my daughter has 5 life-threatening conditions and autism, just to keep things interesting. So I think that people need to realize they're not just being a good mom or a good wife or a good daughter, or in the case of men, good husband, etc. But that they really do have an extra role. And when it happened for me, I was at a caregiver conference when my daughter was 3. We were literally in survival mode the first 3 years. And I realized that not all moms were still diapering their kids and feeding them baby food. And the light bulb went off and I'm a caregiver. So our story with paid leave begins when my daughter was born. We had absolutely no expenses other than our mortgage. We had no credit cards, no student loans, no car payments, nothing. And we were very frugal. And when my daughter was born, we went $28,000 in debt and we almost lost our home. And it took us years to recuperate from that. And I realized that other families shouldn't have to go through this. And we fought for paid family leave in New Jersey and nationally. And it went through, yay, in New Jersey. And when my daughter was 19, she needed a kidney transplant. So I ended up using paid leave. But it was totally different experience because you didn't have that perfect storm of all these medical bills, lost wages, And so because it was paid, we were okay. And we were okay throughout the whole thing. And that's why it's so incredibly important to have the family leave insurance in New Jersey, because families can't afford to take unpaid time off. And you have all these extra expenses besides that. So that's our story. And I'm going to throw it back to Peg or Yarrow.
So I've got it, Lauren. Thank you. And we so appreciate, because Lauren is in the midst of caregiving again. We so appreciate you spending some time with us and being willing to share your story. It's important for everybody to know how varied and the multiple of stories that are out there, but it's not always easy to share. So thank you so much for doing that. Right now, we're going to open up the panel on the value of caregiving from various perspectives, and Deb Lancaster will be facilitating our esteemed panel. Deb is the Executive Director of the Center for Women and Work at the Rutgers School of Management and Labor Relations. Welcome, Deb.
Thanks, Peg. Good morning, and I'm excited to facilitate today's panel. Last year, the Center for Women and Work did a study looking at the implementation of paid family leave in New Jersey. And what we learned is that there are a number of opportunities to raise awareness about New Jersey's program, not just through employer messaging, which is super important, and worker advocacy groups, also important, but through intermediaries in the community. These are trusted messengers in our communities who are likely to interface with workers when they may most benefit from knowing about paid family leave. For example, agencies or organizations who provide mental health treatment, cancer treatment, hospice programs, or visiting nurse organizations, or even places where people gather in the community or frequently visit, like a pediatrician's office, federally qualified health center, etc. And we know that when we create a more informed community, we create more messengers that can speak to New Jersey's paid leave options to their peers, friends, and coworkers. And we can move more toward having a culture of care in our state, and having our policy and our commitment to paid family leave in New Jersey, which is of course unique, unfortunately, in our country, reach its full promise. I'm excited. We have some wonderful guests with us today, and you can see who they are on this. We have Crystal, Stephanie, and Yvette, and they'll all have an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their organization. I am going to start with Crystal, I think, right? Let's see, Crystal. And you're each going to have an opportunity to share with us what your organization does and how you see the value of paid leave from your perspective. And so I'm going to start with Crystal, if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
Great. Thanks, Deb. And thank you, everyone. Today's been really great. I am the Associate State Director of Advocacy for AARP New Jersey, and I'm actually a Citizen Action alum and a longtime member of the New Jersey Time to Care Coalition. And so it's great to be with you all this morning, and appreciate really folks who were willing to share their testimonials about what this program means to them. And so I think most people know AARP. It's not just insurance. I actually have nothing to do with that piece of the organization. What we really do is advocate for the right for people 50 plus to choose how they live as they age, right? Make sure that we can do that with dignity. And caregiving is really a central component of that work. Because without caregivers, people would not have the option to really remain at home and in the community where they want to be. And of course, they help support people as they age in so many different ways, whether it be helping at a facility, helping with things like, transportation, groceries, bathing, cleaning around the house, all the way to things like helping with medical care, right? Because caregiving kind of spans all of life. I think it's been mentioned a couple of times, all of us, if we're lucky, will get to grow older, and all of us will either need the help of a loved one to be able to remain in the community, or will become a caregiver ourselves. And so it's incredibly important to us. But as AARP has kind of done research on this issue, there's lots of links and reports and things that have taken a look at the role of caregivers. It's also important to think about the value of caregivers, right? It's not important just to the people who are receiving the care, just to the families who get to keep their loved one at home. But we have, just in New Jersey alone, over 1 million family caregivers who provide care that's valued at about $13 billion annually. And so to put that in perspective, our entire New Jersey Medicaid budget last year was $16 billion. And that's really important because Medicaid pays for most of long-term care services in our state, really, and across the country. And so the more that we invest in our family caregivers, help them to be able to remain doing this work that we know we do out of love and, you know, passion and wanting to care for our loved ones, but it is really a big financial burden and takes a toll on us mentally and physically. And I'll talk about my story in a little bit, but you know, we did a little bit of research and polling that kind of started to take a peek at what happened during COVID, right? And so COVID exacerbated a lot of things, but, you know, for caregivers, it was such an immediate, we'll call it immediate change, right? One of those kind of emergency situations. Long-term care facilities closed, you know, all of a sudden just shut their doors. Fewer family and friends available to help because you didn't want to pass viruses. We know, you know, and I know others will talk about this, but, you know, daycares, schools closed. All of a sudden, everything was on the caregivers to just try to figure out how to fill in the gaps. And our research showed that during COVID, 38% of caregivers had to reduce their hours worked, 30% had fewer friends and family available to help, and 30% of people had to take a leave of absence to provide that caregiving role, right? And so what was already an incredibly hard job became even harder, and it's something we really have to focus on, and something that really shines a light on why programs like New Jersey Family Leave Insurance, like the job protections through the Family Leave Act, are so important for people. And so AARP is continuing to fight for this. There's still more to be done to certainly strengthen, but this is so important today to make sure we get the word out, you know, to let people know that this program is available and encourage people to participate.
Thank you, Crystal. And thanks for sharing. I like my AARP magazine that I get, but it's good to know that it's, you know, you're doing work that goes well beyond on that magazine. I am now gonna have Stephanie, who I know works directly with a lot of caregivers, share a little bit about what your organization does and how you see the value of paid leave from your perspective, excuse me.
Thank you, Deborah. And I just wanted to thank everyone for being here and letting me talk a little. And certainly Crystal and AARP are huge partners and part of our Caregivers Coalition as well. And I tried to join AARP when I was 30, but apparently that's too young. So I will wait my turn. But I came to United Way of Northern New Jersey over a decade ago, and I started as the coordinator specifically for the counties of Morris and Somerset with the Caregivers Coalition. And we do have coalitions in suburban Essex, Sussex, and Warren County as well. You don't have to live in those counties to be part of our coalition, but these are the areas served under United Way of Northern New Jersey. And our coalition was formed 17 years ago under what was at the time Morris County United Way, because there was a huge gap in addressing the needs of family caregivers, and all of the funding was generally used and kind of provided through the care recipients and diagnosis and age, etc. And so we knew that family caregivers, as Crystal alluded to, are the backbone of our healthcare system, and without it, it would collapse. We knew that our mission would be to support family caregivers through information, education, and resources. United Way of Northern New Jersey fights for ALICE. I think it's important to give a little background about our full organization. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And it's a term that was coined through United Way for households that do earn above the poverty line, but certainly not enough to make ends meet. And again, could be one crisis away from being in the poverty sector or truly living paycheck to paycheck, waiting sort of for that financial disaster. Many people are ALICE, and we decided that it was really important to understand what their needs were, where the gaps in service are, and how we might be able to help with that. And we do that through a few different avenues. Research, which is how we find out who's ALICE, both locally and nationally, and then through our direct impact initiatives. Free tax prep, United in Care, which again talks to the importance of affordable, quality, flexible childcare. And of course, the Caregivers Coalition, which recently joined forces with United for ALICE at Work, which is really all about highlighting and advancing common sense workplace policies, and then providing concrete supports like family leave options. So really, our coalition, in addition to being made up of unpaid family caregivers, is made up of various providers of service. And I won't go into all of them, but really, I mean, it's anyone in the community who has anything to do with people. So attorneys, corporations, reps from government, nonprofit, for-profit, anything in between. Across the lifespan, it doesn't matter who you care for, how old they are, what their diagnosis is, it just matters that you're a caregiver. And everything we do is based off of what caregivers tell us they need, what's missing from their situation. And one of those needs, and the greatest need, is really being connected. And so in trying to save a little time, I won't go into all of the ways we do that. I hope you can reach out afterwards. But one of the biggest ones is our monthly missive, and we share information about support groups, webinars, things like this, COVID resources, and certainly any announcements that come from community providers, and information like paid family leave, because there isn't one size fits all for caregiving. Having the information you need when you need it is crucial. So we really hope to be that kind of trusted connector for someone who may now be a caregiver or a caregiver in the future. You know, we all know that that's likely to happen, as you said, Crystal.
Thank you, Stephanie, and looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the work that you do soon. And now I'm going to introduce Yvette, and really excited to have you as part of this panel. I think that, you know, the United Way and AARP are organizations that we've all heard of and know the important role that you play in the community on a national level and a local level. And Yvette, and we're looking forward to hearing more about your organization, and thank you for spending time, because we're acknowledging that your 10th anniversary is on Friday, and you're taking precious time away from planning that to be with us this morning. So really appreciate that. And I think we'd love to hear more about the work that you do, the organization that you founded, and the role it plays in the community, as well as the value the value of paid leave for the population that you serve in Hamilton.
For inviting me. I really have learned a lot, and I'm very happy to be in this panel, I think it's very valuable. So I want to share a couple of things, like first about my personal story. Both of my parents are deaf, and I have two siblings who are also deaf. And I grew up in Mexico. I came here in 2004. So I think what is relevant about that is, so I have a personal experience of caring for others as a child, but also because in Mexico we don't have the American Disabilities Act and many other protections that are offered here in the United States. But there's something, so we kind of, as a culture, we both value caring. It has a different value more than being productive, especially for those communities who are still have not been modernized, right? Have not been like fallen into this capitalistic culture. but and so this caring is for children, for the elder, for the ill, for people with disabilities, has a high value. And the reason that it has a high value is because we know that it's part of life, of the human experience, that we are all going to get ill and we are going to age, and having children is important. And also, and then from my perspective, I'm a mental health counselor, so I'm training in mental health. And also I specialize in working with people with disabilities. I went to Gallaudet University. So there's a lot of research that shows, and Allies in Caring works with children and families. So there's a lot of research that shows how this crucial supports, if we as a society provide the supports that children need at birth, and support the parents to be with their children, their physical, cognitive, emotional development is much better than those who lack those supports. And the same we know from research for people who had experienced trauma in their life. If they get the support from families to recover from that trauma, they are much better able to adjust back and become like functioning members of their communities. But instead, if we are too worried, and we just get like stuck with this mentality, and that we have to produce, and we have to continue to stay in the career for success, then it really it's a short-term mentality. We are not looking at the long-term mentality of what happens. For example, that has been part of my life, both personally growing with my family, but also as a provider of mental health services and provider for children with developmental disabilities. We have seen, like, for those who have families, members of their family or community members who provide the supports that they need, and who believe that they deserve more, that they can get more, even for children with disabilities. It's very clear like how those who have the supports that they need can thrive, and they even can become productive members of their communities. And so just thinking about that, like the cost, the personal cost for the families, for the person who is affected, but also for society, because even if when I was reading about all the statements against paid leave, all the arguments against paid leave, it's about economy, right? And it's about saving and some are like interesting also ideas that I want to share later. But in this short-term view ends up costing us, the society, much more, because then we are dealing with, for example, the impact of unresolved trauma, of adverse childhood experiences later in life that can lead to addictions and can lead to physical conditions, chronic conditions. So it really costs us more as a society. So I think I skipped, but like you asked me to introduce myself, I thought that the personal part was more important, but I also, out of my personal experience, I founded Allies in Caring, and even the name of Allies in Caring has to do with that. I wanted to invite community members to become allies in caring for each other, and really valuing care as something that brings about, helps us as a society thrive.
Thank you so much for that perspective, Yvette. I feel like, you brought kind of a different cultural perspective that's important for us to hear, kind of because we get in this mode of this is the way it is, and forgetting that there's other perspectives, both in our country, but also in other countries, of course, and in cultures. So it's refreshing in a way. I feel like more relaxed after hearing you speak. I'm not sure why. And so I'm going to move on to a next question, Stephanie, and thinking about, because I know the United Way in particular works with a lot of employers, but also community nonprofits. You work with AARP. How can employers, social workers, community health workers support caregivers or potential caregivers in being aware of and accessing their paid leave benefits? So, do you have some ideas about how these other messengers can support caregivers or workers in being aware of and accessing their paid leave benefits? And I know that you've had this Alice at Work project, and so maybe you have some examples from working with those employers.
Yeah, well, first, I think we mentioned before that everyone, okay, so I'm going to do this quote, and you've probably heard it from Rosalind Carter. There's 4 kinds of people in the world. I won't take credit for it this time. Those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will need the care, and those who will be caregivers. One of the biggest issues we have with the Caregivers Coalition is people identifying as caregivers, because, as we said, your mother, your brother, your community member, you don't necessarily know there's a label to what you're doing because of the extra work that you might be providing to your loved one. So how do you give information that's so important and vital to these people who don't realize it's for them? So one of the things I mentioned earlier was our missive. And so we do send that out directly to caregivers, but also our community provider members who are working directly with patients, clients, whoever it might be, family members. So they can share that information where they see sort of those gaps or the fit. And we try to deliver educational topics in a way that makes it interesting and for all community members. So topics on, Medicare, Medicaid, or self-care, Social Security, preparing important documents of your life. And so they're obviously important to caregivers, but we don't necessarily need to just focus on that. And as you mentioned, and I said earlier, the Alice at Work initiative is another place where we really see the ability to talk and work with employers on how to best support their employees. And, in the old days, pre-pandemic, we used to host in-person events, shocking. And a lot of these happened in workplaces, and we would ask the audience participants to raise their hand if they knew someone who was a caregiver or if they were a caregiver. And there were so many times that after these events, people would contact us because they didn't want to admit to being a caregiver in their place of employment, to their colleagues, to their bosses, because will they think I'm not a good worker? I'm spending too much time on caregiving tasks, caregiving related things, and would it reflect poorly on them? And they couldn't risk losing their jobs. And so unfortunately, without their employer support, that can happen anyway. One of our caregivers actually came to the coalition after this event, unfortunately, but she was employed by a large pharmaceutical company, and her husband had dementia that was getting worse and worse. He was part of a medical daycare, and the hours that she needed didn't work, didn't compete, or they competed with her working full time. And she didn't know she was entitled to family leave. So she left her job. And I think, as we talked about, how it's so expensive to replace, hire, train new employees, that being able to talk about that economic value, that it's not just the right thing to do, but they're losing valuable workers. And maybe this caregiver could have stayed with this place of employment had she worked with her employer to plan out how she could have used it, whether it was for a few weeks at a time or a certain day of the week. And I think our goal as we start a very new initiative here is being able to discuss with these workplaces through their leadership, management, HR, how something like paid leave is beneficial for both sides and how to offer that to their employees.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thanks for sharing that story about the person who came to the coalition. That's pretty sobering. Crystal, do you have advice or guidance, some experience about how employers, social workers, community health workers, and others who may be with us today can help potential caregivers or current caregivers in being aware of paid family leave benefits.
Yes, thanks. And, getting the information out, I don't want to reiterate, but it's so incredibly important because, as Stephanie said, a lot of people don't know that there might be something like this where they can get financial benefits to help them while they're leaving work. So people aren't necessarily Googling and trying to find the information, because unless they hear it from word of mouth, from an employer, from a provider, they don't know to look, right? And I actually recently sat on the New Jersey Caregiver Task Force for the state. It's one of the things we talked a lot about, like, even the term caregiver, what does that mean to folks? To Yvette's points earlier, it's part of being a family, right? However you define family, you are doing this out of love. You're caring for your loved one. And so getting the word out is so important. AARP does this kind of through our membership. But to Stephanie's point, for employers to be able to bring this up proactively as a benefit, right, to their employees, to think about how this, helps us all as a society, and especially as we think of the shortage in workforce and the ability to be competitive. And AARP actually has a toolkit that we offer online. I'll put the link in the chat when I'm done talking. To employers who want to be supportive of caregivers, right? There's making sure that they know these benefits are available to them. If someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm going to have to take some time off, or I'm going to need to leave, hopefully you're asking the next question, well, why? And having an open conversation, but knowing that these benefits are available to people so that they can help figure out if it's something that will work for them, right? And so being able to be proactive as you are having conversations with people, and making sure that all the touch points are hearing from it. In organizing, we talk about the fact, I forget the numbers, but you have to repeat something in teaching too. I think they say like, I don't know, 15 times or something before it sinks in, and you need to hear it, right? And my mom was kind of the person in the community. She's a nurse's aide. And so, she was the person who got everything through the grapevine, right? You needed help with something. My mom knew the program you needed to use for that. She wasn't paid to do that, but she had used every program, right? She had needed help and she figured the way out. And so she was the person who shared word of mouth. And we need more people like my mom to know about family leave and to be able to spread the word in their communities too. And so events like this are so important, but helping make sure we have the basic information. Sometimes I feel like people are afraid to share because they don't know all the details. And right, even with being on with the Department of Labor today, family situations are complicated, right? And things don't follow a paper format. And especially if someone's sick, you don't know how long they're going to be sick for, or when you're going to need the time off, or how to fill out that form. So helping people to feel confident that they can at least point you to the right direction, get you to the right phone number, that there's the basic information. I do think that the website the state has up now on family leave has a great FAQ and has maybe not every question ever under the sun that you might have, but it's a great place to say, hey, I'm not sure, let's look it up together, or I'll help you try to figure that out. Is so important, because when you're going into it, right, people don't leave work lightly, right? They have to get paid, they have to put food on the table. And so to even consider talking to your employer about that, you kind of have to have some knowledge that there might be a program and a financial way to make those figures meet, right? Those dollars meet. And so just so incredibly important to put that information out every which way we can. I think, if I had a magic wand and could make everyone do it, really, it should be a conversation employers are having, when you start at a place of employment, like these are the benefits that are available to you. You take credit for it, right? There's potentially family leave if you should ever need it, for providers who, are helping with discharge of a patient and saying, hey, I know you're going home. This is through the CARE Act, they're supposed to loop your caregiver in, but say hey, there's this program available. Here's a website. Just give the link out. I know there's all these papers that people are getting, so they hate having one more, but just have the link to family leave and say, do you need help paying, bills while you're caregiving, whatever the short hand is, for people just, going into regular provider checkups, having that information available, having long-term care facilities or adult day centers or childcare facilities hand out just something, schools, there's something available. Again, it's all those touch points so that you're reminding like, oh yeah, there is something out there, and not being shy to say, well, I don't know all the details of this, but you may be able to get paid. Here, go look this up at least. So it's in folks' minds. And I've had a couple of these conversations recently where I've had friends tell me, they're caring for a loved one with cancer, they're caring for, an adult loved one who just fell or something like that. And we're on listening phase a lot, right? And you're not in your work mode. So sometimes it's like, well, I have to call back and be like, just in case you need it, you can also probably qualify for family leave. So I can help you look it up later if you want to do that. So just remembering to bring it up often and figuring out how we can change the culture a bit to say, hey, this is a benefit that helps us all, right? You want to keep your employees, you want your patient not to come back to the emergency room or to have to continue to need care. It's in all of our best interest to make sure that there's a caregiver there who has what they need to be able to do the caregiving work.
No, absolutely. And those are all such important points. I was thinking back, my personal experience when I lost my mom to cancer a couple of years ago, and it was all very quick. And, we had nurses and hospice, and not once, and they were all incredibly wonderful, but not once did someone ask my sister or I, how are you going to do this? Right. And what do you need? So it's just interesting, there's a lot of folk, we talked with many people, and also just I have a wonderful neighbor and friend who's a social worker, and she works for hospice, and she didn't know about New Jersey's paid family leave program, and she knows everything, right? Like your mother, Crystal, like they know a lot. They have their pulse on a lot of programs and supports. And, she was just like, I need to learn more about this. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve our awareness and know-how around paid family leave. Yvette, do you have some ideas about how employers, social workers, and community health workers and others on the ground can support workers and caregivers in being aware of New Jersey's unique program?
Yes, something that came to mind that seems important is to support the employers in managing the resistance, because there's a reason for the resistance. I'm an employer too. So and I have had situations in the past, for example, that the person who processed the billing was pregnant, and I didn't have anyone else, and suddenly, right? And she had to leave because she had an early pregnancy. So it really can affect a lot the employer, right? And so since then, something that we implemented is we always do cross training, and we have teams of people learning the same role. And then the way that I introduce that to the staff is like that gives everyone more freedom, so that you always have a backup if you need time to step out, right? And then the other thing that I've learned also, I know that in Australia and Germany they do, is they have apprenticeship programs where, like, for those who are learning, they need to learn accounting or billing or whatever, a kind of internship, but also like not necessarily people that are in school, but people that want to get opportunities to work but don't have experience. So we put it out there that we offer these opportunities for people to learn these roles and help us, and that helps. So being creative with those situations and learning, I think we need to learn how to manage employees in a different way. And I think this is the time, because so far, the way that we have managed employees is like how many hours you come and sit in your desk, and that doesn't really creates the results or the outcomes that we are looking. Sometimes an employee can be there at the office for the 8 hours, and we're not necessarily getting the results that we want. So I was thinking of the person who asked the question of like, what if I only need 4 hours? I find this very often, like parents that work with that we serve that need to go to the IAP meetings, and it's very important for them to participate so that they can make sure that the children with disabilities have the accommodations that they need. Many of the parents that we serve who are like immigrant and many of them undocumented immigrants, they don't want to take the time because they feel vulnerable to take that time. But and so for them, I think so. From the perspective of the employer, I want to think two things. From the perspective of the employer, if we had a different way of managing our employees that is not based on how many hours you're sitting in your chair, but how many, like what are the results that are expected from your job, and are you getting that your job done? And if you get it done, then there's flexibility provided. So I think that changing how we manage, how we measure productivity is going to be very important. And for those, and then the other thought that I have is for those who are very vulnerable, that know, we saw that a lot during COVID, that many came to us saying like, my employer is not providing the mask and not the protection or the distancing. So, and I don't want to say anything because I know if I say something, I might get laid off. And the second thing that also somebody else mentioned, like if I try to call the Department of Labor for protection, it's very difficult to get through and to get the actual help that I need. So the chances for them are very low. So in those cases, I think one thing is what we have been doing in our organization, we provided workshops for them to learn to communicate assertively, protecting their work also. So it doesn't need to be like a fight all the time, but it can be like like appreciating this job is really valuable to me. That's what we helped our families with, like just letting the employer know that this is a very valuable job for me and I want to do my best. I care about my job and I need you to support me. And so this kind of that communication skills might help too. And of course, a lot of education for the employers and like of all the benefits for retention that it was already mentioned, for like how actually I've been interested in looking at research. Now that during the pandemic, that we started to work more remotely or have to accommodate more flexibility. And I was myself as an employer, I was afraid that the productivity was going to be impacted, and it was impacted, but it's not as badly as I thought, because what I saw is that once we provided the accommodations to the employers, that also creates some sense of loyalty and gratitude. That people then they feel more ownership, like you are trusting me, you're really letting me manage my life better. I want to do more. I have to do my part. So it can
Thank
also
you.
work.
I think that's, those both really helpful to hear about, how employers can reframe and how employees, and it sounds like you're doing some wonderful skill building with some of your constituents and clients around having these difficult conversations, especially when someone's particularly vulnerable with their status. So thank you so much. And really thank all of you for participating in this. You all do such important work in this space of advocating for families and individuals to have what it is they need to take care of themselves and their families, and reminding us all of the value of caregiving, both from an economic perspective, as well as just a human perspective in the role that plays in our lives. So I think that I'm turning it back over to Yarrow, if that's correct, Yarrow?
No, I think I'll take it, Deb, but
okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you again
everyone.
for facilitating this amazing panel, and thanks again to all the speakers for the great information and sharing your wisdom with us.
And I think, Peg, sorry to interrupt. I think we are going to put up, I think Yarrow or one of us is going to put up links to each of the organizations.
Yeah, it was on the slide.
Okay, terrific. Thanks.
Yep. So now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Permelia Tony Boss, and I'm sorry if I messed up your name again, who is a member of the Voices of Workers, which is part of Paid Leave for All, key piece of the efforts to highlight the need for paid family leave on a national level. Welcome, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how paid leave made the difference for you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Permelia Tony Boss. I'm from Roselle, New Jersey. Paid leave helped me out at a very crucial time in my life. In 2009, I was diagnosed with lung cancer and had to have surgery to have a section of my lung removed. And I needed somebody to take care of me. And it was kind of hard because my family members, have type of jobs where if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. So to have someone come in and take care of me, for weeks at a time was kind of hard. My daughter was able to come in, every now and then and help me out. But the following year, I was diagnosed again and I had to have another surgery. By that time, family leave, had been started in New Jersey. So she was able to come take care of me and do all the things that I needed to do. But most important was she was also getting paid for this. So she was able to take care of her needs and her daughter's needs, pay the rent, the groceries, and things like that. But having somebody that you love, you trust, take care of you, I'm telling you, there's nothing in the world like it. I felt comfortable with her. I trusted her. She knew my needs and my wants because I can be a little picky at times. And she was there for me. And not only that, my family felt better knowing that she was there with me. And everybody, was more relaxed. And it was just such a good feeling, to have her there. I wanted to be able to tell other people about my experiences so they could also share in this. It is a very worthwhile program. I wish more people would sign up for it. But I know sometimes with the job and the other things that go on in your life, you might not be able to. But I do wish that there was a way we could get this out to more people. We could do this all across the country. Because I felt so much better, so much safer with her there, and to have her financial needs taken care of was extremely important. Now, once we get the job protection in there permanently, I think it'll be a pretty good deal. And I know it's running kind of late, so I think I'll stop there.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Permelia. That was really the crux of the story, isn't it?
Yes.
Having someone to take care of you and then not having to feel guilty because of what they're sacrificing and making sure their needs are taken care of. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Sorry, it was a little short on time. I'm going to turn this back over to Yarrow to close us out, but I do want to thank the Paid Family Leave Collaborative as well as the team at New Jersey Citizen Action for getting this amount of information and resources put together in an 1.5 hour time frame. You guys rock. So Yarrow, take it away.
Oh, no, thank you, Peg. And thank you so much, Permelia, and to the panelists and to Deb and to everyone for being here today. We have a minute left. I'm going to try to leave you with some action items that everyone can do. First, if you haven't filled out the Join the Collaborative form, if someone could pop that link in the chat, we'll also follow up with the slides and recordings. You can see all these things that we would like for you to know about, but do fill out that form. We will be able to gather more information about what your interest is, where you're coming from, and you can actually let us know if you're possibly interested in being part of our upcoming Train the Trainer opportunities. We're going to kick one off in November. We will continue to do these quarterly virtual convenings. The next one will be in December. We'd love for you to actually join our steering committee meeting tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. The link to register and be part of kind of the planning and the operations to figure out what are the topics that we want to bring to this convening level conversation and other behind the scenes. And our work group meeting where we're going to actually be digging in and looking at what are some of the things that we can do. So like actually starting to take action around this focus of caregiving. We're going to rotate these work groups every month, and we're meeting the third Thursday at 9:30, and the next one is next Thursday, where we can actually get together and talk a little more on a deeper level. So we do hope that you can join that as well. Again, you can see that link in the slide and in the chat, and we hope that you could join us. And then the last final pitch here is just please share your story. Your stories are what makes the difference in making sure that people understand. I mean, I think today we heard an amazing number of stories. Everybody seemed to have a personal story, and we do want to know what you've been through, what your experience, positive or negative, in terms of needing to take leave. So definitely share that link and fill it out if you have a story to share as well. And then if you want to get involved in advocacy efforts at the Time to Care Coalition, you can check out that website that I have here on the slide. And we are going to, as Carmelia mentioned, be continuing to work on the issue of job protection, because if you are able to take paid leave, you're eligible for the program, but yet your job may not be protected. That is a huge barrier. So that's something that we are looking to tackle together at the coalition table. And if you do Twitter, we have a little tweet here that we'd love for you to share. And we've our Twitter is Earn Sick Day NJ. So you can check us out there, share our tweets, and keep spreading the word. And we hope to see you at the next convening in December. And I'm only a minute over time. Thanks, everyone. We'll reach out over email with the recording and the slides. Have a great day. Thanks.